Welcome,
All right.
everybody, to Freight Executive Insights. I'm Mike Vincent. This is my good friend, and I haven't talked to in a while, Kary Jablonskli, and she is CEO at Trucker Tools, and she's been in the industry for some time, actually, right?
Yeah, I 3-4 years now. So
Yeah.
I'm not not quite up there with some of the big dogs, but I like to think I've hit it hard over the last couple of years and have sped up my own learning curve.
Well, you have certainly done some work in 3-4 years, right? I mean,
Yes.
you really have. I mean, let's talk about Trucker Tools real quick.
Yeah.
And what you guys are doing there, and let's talk about how you got into the industry real quick, and let's go from there. So, Trucker Tools, what are we talking about? You guys are tracking loads, right? You're
Yep.
carrier sourcing, you're doing all this type of stuff, but it's Trucker Tools. It's for the truckers, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is I mean, the name implies where these tools are intended to be used,
That's
unless you
right.
named it incorrectly.
No, I think we named it right. And I think it comes back to really like the origin story of the business. So Trucker
Yeah.
Tools predates me in the industry. Was founded back in 2009, which is pretty remarkable because it started out as a mobile app. I was using, I don't know what sort of like, I don't know if I had a Razor or one of those, I had a flip phone in 2009. So the fact that our founders had they were really visionaries at that point. The iPhone had only come out 2 years prior, and they saw this need for independent owner operators to need some sort of digital assistant out on the road. Life was hard, MapQuest directions, using atlases. They needed something to help them navigate out there. So our founders, Prasad and Murali, developed a mobile app for truckers, initially designed to basically just give them a free suite of tools to support them. So truck-specific routing. A big early concept was around truck stop reviews, truck stop guides, way station locators, all of those kind of essentials out there, put it into digital form first time ever. And those were the OG tools that we still provide for free in our app and have always really been focused on the owner operator. Over the course of the 2010s from there, as we built this massive, really loyal following of small carriers, owner operators, we realized that there was an opportunity to build this network to connect those small truckers with brokerages to help them do business more easily. One of the things every owner op hates is a check call. So first order of business there was to develop load tracking software to allow small carriers to track via first mobile app. Now we have a bunch of ELD integrations. We have a texting solution, but able to provide their location in real time to brokers who then don't have to annoy the truckers, don't have to distract them by calling them. And then they also, as brokers, can pass those updates on to their shippers, manage exceptions in real time, just run their business more smoothly and digitally. And also for small carriers, a sourcing tool and a load board on our mobile app and on our website so that they could more easily interact with new brokerages who might be a great fit for them to do business with, negotiate digitally. And then those brokerages can also expand their own networks, meet carriers who might be a great fit for them that they didn't know about before, and source new carriers as they look to shore up their lane strength for RFPs or new business that they're working on. So it's really at its core started out as this digital tool set for carriers and has expanded into this network where we're just trying to make business more fluid, more digital between small carriers and brokerages.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing, and it's you talk about how capacity enters and leaves the market,
Yeah.
right? My contention, I mean, there's a lot of argument over to why capacity hasn't left fast enough or whatever if fast enough is a word, at the same rate that it has in the past, right? Let's just leave it at that. And I contend that it's because of great tools like this actually helps the smaller guys. Because back in the day, I've been around about 10 times longer than you have in the industry, and that's no lie, about 36 years. And it was the small guys that knew what was going on before the legacy enterprise people, because they're the first ones that got dumped into grease because they were like the ancillary, they were like the overflow. Okay, I can't give it to my trusted big, so I'll give it to this owner operator, or this small brokerage. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
Those guys are trusted and they're really high service, high level players, and many times more loyal than the enterprise.
Yep. And you develop that personal relationship with them too. So you've got the benefit of you have that relationship, build that trusted relationship, but also they now, to your point, have this, they're just as digitally enabled as any of the large guys. You're going to get the
Yeah,
same quality
they
of
got all the
tracking.
services as the legacy players, right?
You've got it all there. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think the rise of brokerage has also helped these smaller owner operators, small carriers. It's basically they're kind of outsourcing their sales function as a business to the brokerage world, where brokerages are able to keep them loaded as that segment of the market has grown.
Yeah, and it becomes much more easy and much more fluid with a tool like Trucker Tools because, like you say, you don't have to drive and drive and drive and then get to a truck stop and sit down and eat a greasy burger like back in the day or a roller dog and try and find your next load.
Exactly.
You've got the apps that are doing this for you while you're driving and doing it. It's fantastic stuff. You guys just announced some new stuff that you put on it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, our big, most recent release that we actually launched last week, or maybe the week before that, but early July was our cold chain tracking. So, our tracking solution has been such a boon for us over the last couple of years. We've grown it massively, even as the markets, frankly, sucked. Um, and I think part of
Very
that is,
succinct and accurate, by the way.
yeah, there's not a whole lot else to say.
No, there
And
isn't.
I think that's for a couple of reasons. One, we have chosen as a business deliberately to focus on our two core customers, brokerage and small fleets owner operators, as opposed to trying
Yeah.
to boil the visibility ocean. Um, and two, in this market, shipper expectations will only continue to rise. So tracking visibility becomes more and more important to hit those scorecards and making sure you're providing the service levels. So um, where we're trying to take tracking is actually going beyond just where is the truck. We're trying to get really proactive with it, and we're trying to get more multidimensional. And one of those mentions is cold chain. So we launched our cold chain monitoring solution, which allows a carrier who's hauling a reefer to integrate their ELD into our network, provides real-time temperature monitoring to brokerages who can then pass it on to shippers. This all was driven by a couple of large shippers, notably Kroger, um, introducing new requirements for their carriers and brokers to provide real-time temperature tracking in order
Yeah.
to stay compliant in the network. So we heard that feedback, saw there was a ton of demand shifting in the market that way, sprinted after it, built it in less than 2 quarters, and we're integrating dozens and dozens of ELDs right now into our temperature tracking platform.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and you call it cold chain, but it's really anything environmentally controlled, right? I mean, as
Yeah,
long as you've got
yeah,
that input for
yes,
that digital data, it doesn't matter if it's cold or, humidity or whatever it
yep.
happens to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to take it. We want to go to altitude monitoring because that really
Yeah,
impacts
of
the way you
course.
haul potato chips. So that's exactly where we're
That
going to
was
continue to take the product.
one of the first things I learned was not to route potato chips, through the Rocky Mountains was not a good idea.
Bill,
And I never thought about that before. It was like
right?
because they explode.
Yeah,
And I was
exactly,
like, "That's right."
exactly.
When I was in college once, I went skiing up there, my toothpaste exploded in my
Yeah,
bag.
yeah, exactly. So you got to know that. You got to know that as a shipper is smart to say, hey, let's make sure that we're checking where that altitude levels are.
Yeah, an altimeter makes absolute perfect sense, and
Yep.
yeah, that's tremendous because even in regardless, so it has the ability to be really like the intel inside in many other places, right? I mean, this could be something that you're feeding it right into your TMS, right, and then to your people. Does this have, or do you see, or maybe you can just say no comment if I'm like trying to give away a secret sauce. Does this start to have applications, or are you working on those that start to help with sustainability initiatives and maintenance and scope threes and like you know getting your EcoVadis certifications and that type of stuff?
Definitely. We want to be ready for all that stuff as it becomes more and more top of mind for the market. So that's exactly why we're starting to build those integrations right now.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, um, how does Kary Jablonski? I mean, you're pretty highly educated, right? And I mean, you probably have noticed that you are. But back in the day when I started, and I hate saying back in the day, but it really was back in the day. It was deregulation just occurred and
Yeah.
and certain and that type of stuff. there was a certain level of person that went in, or educated type person that really went into logistics, and it
Yeah.
was more of a trade than it was
Yeah.
really a profession, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But that has completely changed. So, I mean, you went to some schools that are, the sheepskin from them, so to speak, is quite valuable, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about Georgetown and Kellogg,
Yep.
right? School at Northwestern. Were you there going, man, I can't not wait to be in trucking?
I don't know if anyone's ever said I cannot wait to be in trucking, but at least that's what I hear from people in the industry. I have yet to meet someone who says I grew up and I knew I wanted to be in brokerage. Like everyone has a story about how they found their
Yeah.
way into this industry. Is what I've learned. And my story is I have always like truthfully been interested in the way things move around the world. Growing up, my mom worked in city planning in our local city government, so it was just always really interesting to me. I've always loved maps. It's always been something that like just thinking about how things move in college. I was always really interested in like kind of the built environment of the world and how cities and systems work. I studied economics in college, and I do think that's a huge part of logistics is supply and demand. So I always kind of had like a predisposition to be interested in these things. And um, my first, so I know I've been in kind of this brokerage, more true logistics world for 3 or 4 years, but I did work at Uber for some time prior to that.
Hmm.
And that was my introduction to the world of logistics. And I really wanted to get into ride sharing back in the mid 2010s when it was blowing up because I thought it was the most exciting, novel idea to figure out how do we take all of these empty assets we have, people's cars around cities, and build a network to make things run more efficiently. And at the end of the day, that is really what logistics and kind of supply chain is. So
Yeah.
I intentionally wanted to move over. I thought the problems they were solving were really interesting. And so I left my first job out of college and got a job at Uber. Um, and I just absolutely loved it. There was so much data. You're always looking at maps. You're thinking about how can we make things run just like 5% more efficiently. And the satisfaction of being able to test things out and learn from that was really exciting. That's where I started to learn more about the trucking world. At Uber, I worked um, in the US and internationally on ride sharing and Uber Eats. So I didn't work on the Uber Freight side of the business, but it was
Yeah.
always in the background and people were talking about it. A lot of my colleagues left Uber to go start trucking business, freight startups.
Yeah.
And I knew it was just like this massive, in some ways, really inefficient, old school industry that
No,
needed
it
to,
100% was. It 100%
yeah,
was. It was
that
the opportunity was a blue ocean of opportunity to disrupt and improve it for sure.
exactly. So I really have built this interest in supply chain and logistics. And when I met the investors who bought Trucker Tools 3 or 4 years ago, and they had this opportunity, I thought, what a cooler place to like. No, there's no cooler opportunity here than to take a business that has awesome history, amazing brand equity with truckers, and help build it into something great. So that's how I got into brokerage logistics world. It's always been of interest to me, and I do think I also I just love the culture of the industry. It's really low key. It's not low key actually. It's pretty intense, but it's people are down to earth. You can show up in a certain way, and I enjoy that. I really do enjoy that. No one's taking themselves
It,
too seriously.
Yeah, no, well, it's like a blue collar, white collar job.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
it's a bunch of white collar and techies going to work with a lunch pail and getting dirty and getting it done is what I liken it to because the culture, like you said, hasn't really changed, but that much. There's still
yeah.
truckers, man. There's still truckers.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. At the end of the day, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you doubt it, just go to an after party.
Yep,
They're still truckers
yep,
at the end of the day. But I agree with you. No, it's a new puzzle every day. And if you
yeah.
can't find something interesting to try and fix or improve or work, then man, you're just not trying because you
Hmm.
can't help but fall into something new and interesting every time you open your phone now. I mean, it's crazy and the connection is awesome. And it used to be, well, I'm just moving freight and assets, etc. when I started, but and as I grew in it, I kind of came to those realizations that you did is that this is really an important economic driver. It's an enabler. It's the infrastructure and it's the supply chains and the logistics that enable an economy to grow and to develop from a developing nation to, first world, et cetera.
COVID just gave this industry a massive kind of PR spotlight and helping people realize this isn't like, it's something that needs to be respected and prioritized. And that is how different businesses will win. And when you look at even things like, how did Amazon grow? So much is about like, it's not just, oh, you can buy anything here. How does that come to life? It's through a really, really sophisticated supply chain strategy. So I'm glad that the industry has gotten the respect it seems like it has always deserved, because of the just recent events.
Yeah, I mean, it was the general population, but it was also the realization, and it was already coming anyways. I mean, there was plenty of venture capital, et cetera, coming into because of the proliferation of all the different tech that was coming on. I mean, hence FreightWaves. So that was one of the originals of FreightWaves, right? I mean, you couldn't do that in 2000. FreightWaves would not have worked, right? And trucker tools, if you tried to do that in probably the year 2000, probably wouldn't have worked.
No.
Right? It's the realization of something right at the time the technology is starting to hit everybody and really be, throughout the industry at the same time. Matching those two things together was crazy.
Yeah.
So we don't want to take up too much time. These are supposed to be fairly short. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about this. But what do you see in the industry today? What do you see moving forward? You're moving into you're moving into the cold chain, et cetera. What are the next issues? Where do you see the next development in the industry going?
Yeah, I think I spend tons of my time thinking about visibility, first of all. And where I see visibility going is getting more and more niche-y and integrations driving the strength of visibility. I think over the last, like, just to zoom out for a minute, over the last 10 years, let's say, there have been these massive visibility platforms that have said, we're going to make end-to-end SKU from China to your dining room table in the United States possible.
Right.
And I love that dream. It's so freaking hard to pull off. And I think what we have realized is going deep in a single vertical can prove really, really fruitful, in developing the actual true richness of visibility, and then building integrations with other platforms that are focused on other aspects of visibility is the way, and making sure that integration is happening, is working and is seamless, is what is going to enable eventual real-time multimodal across the board visibility. I also think around something we're thinking about a lot is how do we get more predictive with visibility? And everyone says, oh, why do I have to track? I know this guy, this is a great carrier we have. He's going to show up. He's going to get what he needs done. Where we want to go is getting more predictive with the massive data we have about where we know ahead of time where where something is going to be. And
like playing hockey, you skate toward where the puck is going to be, not where it is. Yeah,
exactly. Where it's going to be. If it's likely to not track, we can say, hey, you got to get someone on this and actually call, without wasting time on doing that for every single, realizing that not all loads are the same, and getting a little bit more specific, and you taking advantage of all the data that we have to identify which loads are least likely to track.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even the same loads aren't the same.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what makes everything interesting. So in my mind, I'm seeing this concept of all these niche visibility, and then this coalition to collaborate and bring it together to make that overall blanket of visibility. Yep. And isn't it really the ability to then do something about it? I mean, it's, if you just have visibility but you can't do anything about it, it's like watching a horror show. And don't you want to really just say, you know what, I don't want to track it, I just trust this guy, because now you're going to have a good weekend and just expect it to be there on Monday.
Exactly.
Because even if it falls apart, you can't do anything anyway.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Kary, I really appreciate you being on the show. I really do. What's the how do people follow you, and how do they get in touch with Trucker Tools? Where are you guys at? Is it truckertools.com? That easy?
Truckertools.com. It's that easy. Find me on LinkedIn, Kary Jablonsky. I'm on there all the time. Send me a message. Would love to connect and hear your thoughts.
No, and that's one thing I very much respect about you is you're very accessible. There's a few people that are CEO in charge of companies, are very popular companies like Trucker Tools that are also very accessible, and I applaud you for doing that because
Oh,
some just you hear of them but you can't get in touch with them, and that's ridiculous because it's one of those things where maybe they're missing out on some great ideas because they isolate themselves. I
I
don't know.
appreciate you saying that. And that is something that's been really important to me as we've grown the business. I am still on product feedback calls with customers. I'm hitting the road. I'm at the trade shows. I'm talking to customers because like at the end of the day, it's really our customers do the hard part for us. They identify the problems we need to solve. We just then make it happen. So it's really
Yeah.
important to me that we do that.
Yeah, hey, you answered my call, so you probably answer anybody's call.
Oh, come
Maybe
on.
you need to be a little bit more discerning. I don't know.
Maybe. No, but I really
Hey,
appreciate you having me on.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Kary. Everybody, peace and love. We'll see you next time.